Welcome to the fourth episode in a Legendarium series about Caesar's invasion of Gaul. In part 4, Across the Rhine, we will talk about Caesar's conquest of the Veneti, which was followed soon after by a second German invasion. After Caesar defeated this incursion, he crossed the Rhine River, entering countries that no Roman had entered before. Julius Caesar knew that the path to power in Rome lay through military conquest. After 2 years of war in Gaul, he had won a string of stunning victories and seized control of much of modern-day Switzerland and eastern France. He became more powerful, popular, and wealthy than ever before. Yet he faced a challenge from the Veneti, a seafaring Gallic nation in what is today Brittany. Julius Caesar marched west to confront them, but found his usual tactics did not do him much good. The Veneti moved their entire population onto ships, hopping from one town to another. While Caesar ordered the construction of a fleet, the smaller Roman ships, meant for the Mediterranean, stood no chance against the towering Veneti ships, built for the Atlantic. One of Caesar's officers, Decimus Brutus, designed a billhook used to tear apart Veneti sails and defeat them at sea. Soon enough, the Veneti had to make peace, and Caesar thought he could focus on new conquests. Then, as occurred 2 years prior, a German invasion loomed from across the Rhine River. The Usipetes and the Tenchtheri began crossing the river in great numbers. A Gallic nation near the Rhine, the Eubornes, openly welcomed the Germans as liberators. Caesar moved fast, recruiting Gallic chieftains to serve as his cavalry arm. Once Caesar's 5 legions and Gallic cavalry drew close, the Usipetes and the Tenchtheri in turn sent messengers as a delaying tactic. They claimed that invaders forced them to leave their homeland and asked for land in Gaul. Caesar smelled a ruse and refused the offer. As he drew close to the German camp, Caesar sent out 5,000 cavalry as an advance force. The Germans swept upon the Roman Gallic horsemen, and during the battle the Germans killed 2 brothers from the famous Piso family in Rome. Caesar could not let these deaths go unavenged. When the Germans sent a final peace envoy, Caesar made him a prisoner. Finally, Caesar caught the German camp totally unaware and overran them. While those in boats managed to reach the east bank, men who tried to swim across the Rhine drowned in the swift current. While Caesar wrote of the Battle of the Rhine as a great victory, his enemies in Rome saw it as a massacre. Caesar's enemies in the Senate especially denounced the imprisonment of diplomats and Caesar waging war against any nation he chose. Chief among Caesar's critics was Cato the Younger, a man famous for always wearing a black toga. Cato said that he did so to mourn the Republic, whose ideas were betrayed by commanders and senators alike. Caesar needed to do something to restore his popularity. Indeed, he wished to become another Alexander the Great, and to do that he needed to push to the edge of the known world. No Roman commander ever crossed the Rhine River before, so that appealed to Caesar. Though the Romans had intermittent contact with these early Germans, the Romans saw their wooded world as the edge of civilization. Roman travelers to Germania, which they called the Hercynian Forest, returned with tales of strange beasts. They included flat antlered elk that used oak trees as sedans. They also included hairy aurochs with red-black eyes and fearsome curving horns. Finally, they also told stories of Germania birds whose plumage shone like fire in the night. Tacitus idealized these early Germans as a freedom-loving and ascetic nation, especially when comparing them to the pleasure-seeking Roman patricians. He portrayed them as a nation of sylvan rustics, wearing nothing but animal skins held together with thorns and living on a diet of milk, nuts, and meat. Tacitus especially admired their supposed custom of executing traitors by lashing them to wooden hurdles and drowning them in marshes. While Julius Caesar could have crossed the Rhine River by boat, he wished to make a more dramatic entrance. So he ordered the construction of a bridge 1,600 feet long and 400 feet wide, strong enough to support the weight of 40,000 soldiers. To create a foundation, Roman engineers drove a series of wooden piles deep into the river bedrock, using winches as pile drivers. They made each pile 18 inches thick and as tall as 30 feet. The piles went in diagonally to give the bridge greater stability. Roman soldiers even placed the piles to lean against the current. They joined each pair of piles with a length of timber 2 feet thick. Then they laid more timbers across the beams and finally covered it with mats of woven sticks. While the awestruck Germans watched from the east bank, Caesar's soldiers turned local timber into an expanding bridge that literally grew by the hour. Julius Caesar himself spent at least 2 or 3 hours a day helping with the bridge construction. For the Germanic nations across the Rhine, it would be akin to a jet landing in the middle of their village. Only 10 days after starting the bridge, Caesar marched his army across the Rhine. Upon seeing Caesar crossing the river, the stunned Germans fell back to higher ground, fearful of this man who could simply walk across the Rhine. Deep in the forest, they began to assemble an army, but Caesar chose not to engage a dangerous foe on their terms. For 18 days, Caesar freely explored Germania, burning villages and crops as he went. Afterwards, he marched back across the bridge and took it apart so that the Germans could not use it for further adventures in Gaul. In constructing this bridge, Caesar sent a message to the world. Rome could go where it pleased. Caesar could go where he pleased, and nature would not stand in the way of either. For a time, it silenced Caesar's critics back in Rome, who saw him as a man who could overcome any obstacle and do whatever he set his mind to, which is exactly what Caesar wanted. And that wraps things up for this episode of The Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.